Ministry said employers who had paid recruitment fees may now apply for confirmation of employment and visa documentation through the Bangladesh High Commission. The recruitment process was expected to be expedited in the coming weeks, and the entry of workers would be subject to health screenings and other requirements under the Immigration Department. Malaysia and Bangladesh signed a labour agreement in December, whereby Putrajaya appointed 25 Bangladeshi agencies for the recruitment of workers. Meanwhile, stakeholders within the palm oil industry has agreed in principle to reduce cooking oil prices in stages based on the current market value of crude palm oil. Chairman of the Special Task Force on Inflation, Tan Sri Anwar Musa, said the price reduction would be implemented soon. He said an engagement session was held with key players in the palm oil industry, including manufacturers, suppliers and packaging companies on Tuesday. Crude palm oil CPO prices hit a record high of 7,268 ringgit a ton on March 9th, but have halved in 4 months on the back of changing oil market dynamics. The Malaysian Palm Oil Board predicts CPO prices to average at 5,300 ringgit per ton in the second half of 2022 due to higher global vegetable oil supply, higher CPO production as well as lower palm oil exports. A framework will soon be announced to enable CBD products to be registered by 2023. Health Minister Khairi Jamaluddin says his ministry will also invite proposals for the registration of CBD products.
Ya, sekarang ini KKM dan NPRA sedang melihat semua maklumat dan juga terbitan saintifik berkenaan dengan penggunaan CBD. Dan pandangan awal saya lah, ya, memang ada penggunaannya yang boleh membantu pesakit-pesakit dalam keadaan tertentu. So sekarang ini kita dalam proses untuk melihat dalam keadaan apa CBD boleh diberi.
The framework, however, will not include the cultivation of cannabis. For now, CBD products will only be given under prescription and not for self-medication or recreational use. In April, Khairi had said his ministry was open to collaboration of clinical studies on the use of medical cannabis. A report by the centre reveals that over 50% of Malaysians believe drug users should be given fairer punishment. Researcher Tam Javan weighs in on how we can effectively tackle domestic drug use in a more humane manner.
At 56% of our respondents are actually open to non-custodial sentences like community service, fines, or even rehabilitation, or no punishment at all for the offense of using less serious drugs like cannabis. And I think this speaks to how we can change the way we tackle the issue of drug use in the country, right? Such rehabilitative measures are actually provided for already in Malaysia. We're just not using these measures enough. So, for example, let me use the community service as an example, right? In the Human Development Plan of Penjara Malaysia, community service seems like an afterthought for some of these offenders, right? If you have good behavior, you might be looking at community service instead. But this thought requires you being sent in first instead of being out of it completely. So I'm hoping that this report changes that or opens the door to us even considering using community service from the get-go, that people don't have to be put through the system before meeting or being given an opportunity for more rehabilitative measures. Yeah.
There are many levels of drug use and abuse in the country. Javan suggests that for minor offences, Malaysia must consider rehabilitative solutions instead of jail time to provide a better path to recovery.
I think we need to start looking at pulling these very rehabilitative measures out. There are some in Dangerous Drugs Act. There are some that's under the purview of penjara. Pull them out. We look at these minor drug offenses and the way we are sentencing them, and put these nice, better measures into consideration in court proceedings itself, for example. So that would be a more preemptive measure to look at drug use and drug abuse in the country than what it is now.
Under Section 39 of the Dangerous Drug Act 1952, anyone found in possession of as little as 5 grams of heroin or morphine can face imprisonment for life. While Section 6 of the Act states that any person found in possession of opium, coca leaves or cannabis can face a fine of 20,000 ringgit or prison for not more than 5 years or both.
The first step to really do this is to relook at provisions in the Dangerous Drugs Act and the Drug Dependence Treatment and Rehabilitation Act, which is yet to be repealed or updated. The provisions that really tackle what our respondent thinks are clearly more minor drug offenses than the others. Because currently, let me raise an example from the DDA. It takes as little as 5 grams of morphine for you to be liable to not just a fine, but also a jail term, right? So what if we could relook at that provision from the aspect of intent of the crime, the type of drugs involved?
Was the $15 billion arbitration award for the descendants of the Sultan of Sulu not taken seriously by Putrajaya until the seizure of the Petronas assets? Tonight on Consider This, we ask our guests what lies ahead in this dispute. We will go for a quick break. Stay with us.
COVID-19 memperlihatkan kepada kita betapa pantasnya adaptasi teknologi di kalangan PKS kita. Niaga AWANI dan Unified Business akan menyelami perjalanan kebangkitan semula PKS kita melalui segmen Jiwa SME setiap Selasa dan Khamis untuk inspirasi anda.
Transformasikan perniagaan dengan Unified Business, rakan digital pilihan anda. Hubungi kami sekarang dan jimat sehingga 50%. Jom Unified Business.
Welcome back. On to developments in Sri Lanka. Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who fled the country to Maldives earlier, has been allowed entry to Singapore. According to Singapore's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Rajapaksa is in the country for a private visit. It also said that he has not asked for asylum and neither he has been granted one. While anger is growing in his home country over his refusal to formally resign, protesters have started to retreat from government buildings they had seized. Rajapaksa had promised to resign on Wednesday, but there is no official announcement he has done so. Shortly after Rajapaksa left the country, protesters stormed acting President Ranil Wickremesinghe's office to demand his removal. He responded by calling a nationwide curfew overnight. Rajapaksa, who as president enjoys immunity from prosecution, is believed to have wanted to leave Sri Lanka before stepping down to avoid the possibility of arrest by an incoming administration. The country's parliament speaker had announced earlier that a new president will be elected on July 20th. The week-long protests have so far left 1 person dead and 84 others injured. Over in Haiti's Port-au-Prince, at least 89 people have died and 16 others missing after gang violence erupted a week ago. Violence in the capital has intensified with gang warfare and residents protesting amid soaring prices and fuel shortages. The National Human Rights Defence reported that another 74 people sustained gunshot or knife wounds. The unrest erupted on July 7th between two rival factions in City Soleil, an impoverished and densely populated neighbourhood. Residents have called for the government and authorities to intervene, as thousands are trapped without food and water. International humanitarian organisations also struggle to deliver essential supplies and medical care due to the violence. The UN reported that nearly half of Haiti's 11 million residents already face food shortages, including 1.3 million facing a humanitarian emergency and famine. A new wave of COVID infections is rapidly spreading through Asia, prompting warnings from Japan to New Zealand. Authorities urge people to take precautions to slow the outbreak and help prevent healthcare systems from being overwhelmed. The surge in cases is mostly driven by the BA4 and 5 of the Omicron variants. In Japan, new infections surged to above 90,000, a level not seen since early this year. The government urged people to be careful ahead of an upcoming long weekend and summer school vacations. Newly infected patients have increased by over twofold compared to the last week, but hospital bed usage remained low. Daily cases in South Korea, meanwhile, had tripled in a week to more than 39,000. Experts expect new cases to reach 200,000 daily by around mid-August to end September. The country is expanding inoculations of booster shots but not planning to renew curbs. Australia also warned it could be hit with its worst COVID-19 outbreak over the next few weeks. Authorities said millions of new infections could be expected, but ruled out any tough restrictions to contain the spread. In New Zealand, meanwhile, the government announced free mass and rapid antigen tests as it tries to relieve pressure on the country's health system. It is dealing with an influx of both COVID-19 and influenza patients during the Southern Hemisphere winter. New Zealand, which has a population of 5.1 million, has almost 69,000 currently infected with the virus. Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi's coalition government appeared close to collapse after one of its members, the Five Star Movement, said it would not back a confidence vote. Other coalition parties have also warned that they will quit the government if Five Star boycotts the vote in the Senate. This raises the prospect of Draghi's resignation potentially leading to an early election. Five Star leader Giuseppe Conte had told lawmakers that his party, the second biggest group in Draghi's coalition, would boycott the confidence vote, which the government called over an aid package. Conte has said Draghi is not doing enough to tackle the cost of living crisis. That is all we have for you on AWANI tonight. I'm Fana Shea. Thank you for watching.